Hey everyone, Nigel and Luke here, and welcome to Crime Zone. If you've ever been on a long road trip, you've likely pulled into a rest stop or two. Whether it's to make an emergency bathroom trip, to get some directions, to stock up on snacks and supplies, or simply to get out of the car for a bit, there's no doubt that these side-of-the-highway staples can be a lifesaver. Of course, they can also be the exact opposite. While most rest stops are perfectly harmless, especially the more modern ones that operate more as tiny malls, not all of these locations are created equal. Many are simply glorified parking lots with a couple of bathrooms, miles away from anything or anyone else. Regardless, if you ask us, rest stops are kind of just eerie places in general. The combination of isolation and the knowledge that literally anyone could be passing through at any time just brings with it a certain creep factor. It also turns out you don't have to look very hard to find examples to validate these fears. Today, we decided to take a look at a few of these types of cases, focusing on crimes that took place at rest stops. Before we get to our list, we wanted to take a second to remind everyone about Crime Zone's Patreon. In addition to ad-free versions of all of our content and weekly bonus videos for our Crimes of the Week and Crimes of the Week International videos, patrons will get exclusive monthly videos covering viewer-suggested cases. If you want even more Crime Zone content and are interested in helping to support the channel, head over to patreon.com/crimezone to sign up. We'd love to have you on board. With that out of the way, here are 3 eerie crimes that happened at rest stops. On the evening of August 5th, 1982, the St. Francis Cathedral in downtown Santa Fe, New Mexico, received a phone call. It was picked up by a priest named Father Patrick Gerard, who was told by the man on the other end that he needed a priest to come to where his grandfather was having a heart attack because he had requested his last rites. The man said that he and his grandfather were near the former mining and smelting town of Waldo, a short distance off of Interstate 25. Father Gerard apologized and said that he was unable to drive because of his poor eyesight. All of the other priests were taking confessions at the moment, but he told the man to call back in about 15 minutes. Exactly 15 minutes later, the phone rang again and was picked up by another priest, 57-year-old Reynaldo Rivera. The man on the other end of the call repeated the same story that he had previously told to Father Gerard. However, Father Rivera agreed to drive to the man's location to administer his grandfather's last rites. The caller identified himself as Michael Carmelo and said that Father Rivera should meet him at the La Bajada rest area off of Interstate 25 and that he would direct him the rest of the way. The man told Father Rivera that he would be waiting for him in a blue pickup truck. At approximately 8:45 p.m., Father Rivera left the rectory in his vehicle. Though reports contradict each other here, the vehicle was either a tan Chevrolet Malibu or a cream-colored Chevrolet Chevelle. Before Father Rivera left, he informed the church abbot of his plans before beginning the roughly 20-mile journey to the rest stop. After that, he was never heard from again. When Father Rivera was reported missing the morning after the mysterious phone call, police began investigating the disappearance immediately. Before a major search effort could even be organized by parishioners and the local community, investigators made 2 grim discoveries. Just before noon on Saturday, August 7th, Father Rivera's body was found out in the open in a muddy field a few miles from the rest stop where he had last been headed. His abandoned vehicle was discovered that same day at another rest stop, roughly halfway between Albuquerque and the city of Grants, about 80 miles west. An autopsy revealed that Father Rivera had died from a single gunshot wound to the abdomen, though signs of trauma to his neck indicated that he might also have been strangled or restrained with a piece of wire. An investigation of his car revealed few clues. There was no blood found inside, and it appeared that the vehicle had been wiped of most potential evidence. The exception seemed to be a few unknown fingerprints inside the vehicle, as well as a partial palm print on the car's exterior. Here, the reports diverge again. According to some sources, many of Father Rivera's possessions were missing, including his glasses, wallet, and the sacrament bag he had taken with him to perform the last rites. Other reports state that the only thing missing was the sacrament bag. Despite the bizarre nature of the brutal crime, it initially seemed like the terrified and grieving public would not have to wait very long for answers about what had happened. In the days following the discovery of Father Rivera's body and vehicle, reports emerged that investigators had already narrowed in on a suspect. That suspect was 39-year-old Manuel Pete Nieto, a habitual offender who had been paroled just a few days before the murder. Nieto was supposed to report to a drug rehabilitation center immediately after his release as a condition of his parole. However, after a mix-up with the state's Department of Corrections, no transportation had been arranged, and Nieto was simply allowed to walk off. He had never shown up at the rehabilitation center. According to multiple news reports at the time, several witnesses claimed that they had seen Nieto near the city of Grants on April 7th. This seemed to place him relatively close to the area where Father Rivera's vehicle was discovered, on the exact day that it was found. Adding further intrigue, police told local news outlets that the partial palm print found on the vehicle had features similar to prints taken from Nieto, which authorities had on file. However, they were careful to point out that the print that had been left behind was not large enough for them to confidently make an exact match. While this seemingly massive break in the case managed to dominate the headlines for a couple of days, the optimism quickly vanished when Nieto was suddenly cleared by police. It turned out that he had actually been staying with 4 women in a house in the west side of Santa Fe, and had been planning to flee the state to California once he got some money. The women were able to provide Nieto with an alibi for key points in time that would have made his involvement in the murder of Father Rivera impossible. At least 2 of the women agreed to take polygraph tests, and both passed. After that, police also further walked back the information they had released about the potential palm print, saying that they now believed that it had actually been left by Father Rivera himself. It is unclear if this was also the case with the fingerprints found inside the vehicle. Some reports state that they were still being analyzed at the time, but it appears that nothing substantial ever materialized as a result of this evidence. With their best lead in the case now dead, investigators were forced to go back to the drawing board. Based on the available evidence, they soon outlined a few facts and theories. First, police speculated that there could have been more than one suspect involved in the murder. Though we could not find an exact reason as to why this was the case, some have suggested that this was because of the injuries to Father Rivera's body, suggesting that 2 people had been involved in restraining him. Second, investigators concluded that whoever had been responsible for the brutal crime had likely met Father Rivera at the rest stop as planned, then either killed him there or somewhere else before moving his body to where it was eventually found. They further speculated that the motive could have been robbery, owing to the missing items. Investigators also said that though they believed it was unlikely that Father Rivera had been specifically targeted, owing to the fact that the mysterious caller had never asked for him by name, the killing could have been motivated by some sort of revenge against priests or the Catholic Church in general. This could have further explained why the suspect or suspects took Father Rivera's sacraments bag. Curiously, when police did some digging into the phone call itself, they learned that the only payphone at the La Bajada rest area was not operating at the time of the murder, meaning that the man referring to himself as Michael Carmelo made the call from another location before meeting Father Rivera. Perhaps the darkest theory about the call is that the suspect phoned the rectory from a nearby location, then simply watched Father Rivera leave before following him out of town. As the investigation pressed on, more potential suspects were tracked down and questioned, including at least one person in Arizona who was named Michael Carmelo. However, Carmelo passed a polygraph test and there was no evidence linking him to the case. A handful of other people who were either convicted or suspected of being involved in similar murders of clergy members were also questioned, taking investigators to Texas, Arizona, and California. However, none of these suspects were ever successfully connected to the murder of Father Rivera. In 1983, investigators were again sent a long distance away from New Mexico when they received a tip about a man who had been arrested in New York for possession of stolen property and a concealed weapon. It turned out that the man was a former resident of Santa Fe who had allegedly been involved in a string of crimes there prior to his arrest. Investigators from New Mexico eventually interviewed the man and administered a polygraph test, but the results of that test were never reported. However, it appears that police never officially cleared the man as a suspect. This is curious, since the man was mostly involved in residential burglaries, and other than cryptically saying that he fit the psychological profile of the suspected killer, police have never really given any solid reason as to what led them to be suspicious of him. According to one source we found, the man had previously stolen a statue from the cathedral where Father Rivera worked, and was angry when the church did not ask for clemency for him when he was caught. If true, this would seem to provide a possible revenge motive behind the murder. However, we were unable to verify this claim. Then, in 1984, the case got even more elaborate, when another priest named John Kerrigan disappeared in Ronan, Montana, a little less than 2 years after the murder of Father Rivera. Father Kerrigan was last seen at a bakery in the city's downtown on July 20th, and bloodied clothes belonging to him were discovered along Montana's Highway 35 just over a week later. A blood-covered coat hanger was also recovered along the shores of Flathead Lake near the city of Polson, and Kerrigan's vehicle was found abandoned on July 30th, several miles away. Robbery was ruled out as a motive, as his wallet containing a sizable amount of cash was found in the car, as well as a blood-stained shovel and a pillowcase. When detectives in New Mexico were informed about Father Kerrigan's disappearance, some began to theorize that the cases were connected. Though there were definitely differences, such as the ample amount of blood evidence found in Kerrigan's case, as well as the lack of a body, there were also similarities. Both men's vehicles had been found abandoned, both were members of the clergy, and both vehicles appeared to have been wiped of most fingerprints and other evidence. Though investigators were split internally on whether they believed the cases were connected, they would come to be more or less dissociated in the minds of the public over the next few years, especially after they were covered together on a segment of the television show Unsolved Mysteries in 1988. The segment covered the similarities between the two cases extensively. Though the episode's airing did manage to generate hundreds of new leads, ultimately, it would not bring about a resolution to either case. And as the years passed, both Father Rivera and Father Kerrigan's stories began to fade into obscurity. At the present time, both cases remain unsolved, though over the years, investigators have become less inclined to believe that Father Rivera's case and Father Kerrigan's case are related. Notably, in 2015, Kerrigan's name was released along with dozens of others after a class action lawsuit was brought against the Diocese of Helena relating to allegations of sexual abuse within the Catholic Church. Kerrigan was one of 80 clergy members implicated in that abuse, and as a result, there was a much clearer revenge motive in his case. As his remains have never been discovered, some have also theorized that he faked his own death. Father Rivera's record apparently remains clean, making it less likely that he would have been targeted by the same potential perpetrator if Kerrigan was murdered. For now, it appears that the mysterious murder of Father Reynaldo Rivera is destined to remain a mystery. Do you know of any other cases like this that you think we should check out? Tell us about them in the comments section below. As always, if you enjoyed our video, don't forget to like and subscribe to Crime Zone for more true crime content like this, making sure to hit the notification bell to stay up to date with our latest releases. Thank you for watching.